Good morning, friends. We're going to talk a little bit about what is this channel. Now, that always seems like redundant, like you've seen this channel 100 times, and that would not be an exaggeration. I mean, there are over 100 YouTubes here. Let's say there's 500 YouTubes here. Why am I still talking about what is this channel? But that's not really redundant because if you watch a lot of these YouTubes, people in their 30s and their 40s, they've been alive that many years every day, right? Like day after day. And I'm like 62 myself, but in any case, they're wondering who am I, or what is the self, or what is the I? In other words, who am I, and all this kind of thing. Identity, right? It's like, what is this channel? Who am I? Bah, same kind of thing. And it's always a good topic. I'm putting it that way. It's like the weather. What's the weather? It's like that's intrinsically interesting. It's right up there with sports and news, right? News, sports, weather, and self. But this is about content. You could say academic content. My daughter sent me a picture of a beer can, Academia beer, that looked really cool. I thought it was funny. And speaking of beer, well, like I have right here, I have Tesla. Believe it or not, the skinny can was a beer can. It was sold at the nearby arcade parlor. We have two Avalon, were coin operated machines, and what was it called? Open Space. It'll come to me. It's just up the street here on Hawthorne. I do a lot of place based education. And then Trim Tab IPA. Dented. I actually drank the beer out and brought it back in my luggage because empty. Trim tab is a key word around here. And the brewer there in Alabama knows very well, Birmingham, Alabama, all about Bucky, which is Bucky Fuller, Buckminster Fuller. Now, what I always recommend as kind of a starting place for topics is worldgame.blogspot.com, where we are now. And I'm talking about Christmas because this is the day after Christmas. And I try to keep my blogs kind of synchronized with what's going on too. Here, I'm kind of making fun of all the hysteria. It's not really hysterical, actually. I mean, it's pretty calm. Everyone says it's the greatest hack in the world and all this stuff. Now, I've been reading up on it. It's Microsoft is saying 4,000 lines of code were put into that DLL. Where do I talk about that? I think I wrote about that somewhere too. Yeah, oh, I wrote about that here. That's right. I updated this post, and because when I change a post significantly, I redate and time it to the time that, I actually made my most recent changes. So I've been messing around with this one and adding in more detail, the 4,000 lines. They actually show some of the source code. So this all got quote unquote injected at what I'd call the version control level, right? It's like when you're doing stuff on GitHub like we do, and someone checks in like really different code. That's what happens. So the version control, right? I'm sure this company has to be using version control, so they must be looking into that issue. When and who, right? Did that code come in? That'd be interesting. I'm not expecting some name in Cyrillic for some reason. Just doesn't occur to me that that would be the case. By the way, we really work closely with Russians in the open source community. Don't forget about Nginx. Sure, a Seattle company can buy it. A bunch of suits can represent all this stuff as properties they can buy and sell, but it doesn't change the underlying engineering facts of the matter, which is what a lot of these corporate suits never understood anyway, is all the work that we do together, regardless of their suitifying, right? It's not anything. What they do to make money is not really that concerned with the operations level, where we actually write and run source code. And what they say, the more, what do they say? Many eyes make all bugs shallow, right? It's like you're less likely to have breaches and security problems if you have 1,000 eyes eyeballing the source code, and the source code's right out there in public, and anyone who checks in source code, that can be seen by others, right? Like on GitHub, if it's public on GitHub. So, what I'm saying is this MITRE attack, as they call it, and they have a number for like supply chain investment attack. This example they give sometimes, I don't know if I'll find, how quickly can I find what I'm exactly talking about? Let's test that. So we'll go to control room. I'm really hoping I left a link right into the Microsoft analysis, or did I not? Because, right, I didn't. Oh, wait, here, Will Self. No, Will Self is a cool guy in England who got me into watching Solaris again. Microsoft, almost 4,000 lines. Well, let's just do Microsoft SolarWinds 4,000 lines, because what I'm trying to find is in this document. Anyway, like I'm saying, it's got to be under version control. Okay, see, everyone's writing about this document, but where is the actual document? Probably there, the one I looked at the Microsoft website, right? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, while this loads, this has been kind of Russiagate 2.0. And as you know from this channel, I wasn't interested in just buying what the mainstream press was telling me about any of this stuff, because I don't trust journalists and I don't trust suits to even know what's going on. Now, suits a little bit different because anyone can dress up in a suit. I can dress up in a suit and all of a sudden, act like maybe I'm supposed to be in a boardroom or something, keep wearing a hat maybe. So, okay, so here's what I'm talking about. They say it has 13 subclasses and 16 methods. Now, if this were a government investigation or a university investigation, I think I'd expect more transparency. But this is considered a corporate world. And, they say state-sponsored actor, but who sponsors the states anymore, right? So it's really corporate-sponsored actors, because states are intermediaries. They're kind of money laundering entities that make it look legal and okay what you're doing. And, you need that. You need that kind of mantle of legitimacy, especially if that government gives you all kinds of wild powers to just go out and attack and be profitable in all kinds of parasitical ways. If you can find a government of power that will give you those privileges and that also lets you control it, great vehicle. Great vehicle. So what happened was, so they have all these details about how this all is supposed to happen, right? And this, I think, is kind of the collapse of a certain narrative, which got started as Russiagate 1.0. And the Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear stuff, right? I call it the Great Unraveling. Now, what was it we were looking for here exactly? I was telling you, this is all Windows ecosystem. You can call it the Windows ghetto if you want, but it's they say it's for the suits. The corporate 500 are all there using Windows. I believe it, right? But those of us who are kind of second generation, third generation, did not stick with that model of software that you pay license fees and all that stuff. So we're on Linux much more, and the way Microsoft has gotten to get into the Linux game is offering it through the cloud, right? You can spin up your Ubuntu server in Azure now. So Microsoft is back in the game offering Linux services. And it's the same thing for Windows. It's starting to be Linux under the hood. In fact, there's a Linux layer and so forth. So Microsoft is preserving its identity. It's kind of turning itself into this government policeman. I mean, we don't trust the government to come out with this kind of document. It's a corporation, and the NSA gets to be a victim. It gets to be hacked. and Microsoft gets to be the new thing we rally behind as the all-knowing protector, along with like FireEye and these other companies, right? So this hope is, I suppose, in the marketing department, is this whole scandal is going to drive us into this, I'd call it ghetto, but like I say, a lot of people aren't using this whole ecosystem very much anymore. This is kind of old. So you can disagree with that, by the way. A million people just stood up and said, I beg your pardon, this is cutting edge, right? This Fortune 500 stuff is really cutting edge. Suits lead. So on Medium, just to catch you up a little bit more, this time of year I'd usually be doing a lot with a hexapent, and I think I will end up doing that around New Year's. That's like the New Year's ball, the Times Square ball. You see, Bucky, he was always consistent in that he said after like 1927 that he was in the game for all humanity. It was like he was under that kind of pressure. And that was so harmless and benign and novel back in the 20s and 30s and 40s. 40s, it got to be where he got to be in the Cold War because he didn't get hot. He wasn't hothead. And, Kabul Dome and all that kind of stuff. It's all here in my channel. It's all out there. And so he stuck to his guns, you could say. He always said he's trying to help all humans. And it wasn't just rhetoric. It's like his character on stage and his ability to sketch positive futures would all go away if he becomes a hyper partisan for this country over those countries or whatever. So he really didn't have a choice in terms of his character to deviate from his sort of stated agenda to help all of humans, help the whole planet, etc. But that went from being a benign sort of, okay, Bucky, whatever you say, you're making money for some people, it looks like. It went from there to, you're really starting to get annoying, mister. You're getting obnoxious. He was seen as the obnoxious one. But, with President candidate Yang talking about UBI and how, we could all, it would come with certain price tag. Like if the UBI is a scholarship that pays you to develop cool stuff, that cool stuff then belongs to everybody, right? But you're getting a UBI to make art, let's say, make music. But all the music you make should go out there and, if you're wildly successful, you'll be able to make money on top of what the UBI does. But what education automation was about, Bucky's book, in the 60s, is we could have UBI and we could have a much more open source economy. And we do have the latter. We have the latter economy. And you're getting a lot of economists now who try to tell the story of what's been going on, who don't know anything about this open source or this world that we're moved into, and so their writing doesn't sound very literate, and they're reluctant to call each other out on that. But as kind of someone who lived through it on my side, it's time to start talking about the people that I consider part of my history, like Richard Stallman, like that movie Revolution OS. That was a good one. Let's end with that. I'll just go there on IMDb. How about IMDb Revolution OS? Because we are not scared of Iranians or Russians or Chinese, right? We're not like that. We're not suits. So we get tired sometimes of all this media and journalists. Journalists don't know anything. Don't know a thing. Okay, IMDb, what were we going to look for? Revolution OS. Good one. Give it a watch. You'll understand a lot more about your culture if this the ethnosphere that we are a part of. If you want to live in Wall Street or whatever, don't watch it, right? Because you need to maintain your typecast as being very ignorant. And, that's why the world's so screwed up. No brains, right? New York doesn't like to hear that. But Revolution OS 2001, available on Amazon. All right. Talk to you soon.